right. So, welcome to Screen Time with today's Communiqué. So thankful to have Assistant Little Rock Police Department Chief Crystal Young Haskins with us to talk a little bit about herself in general and also specifically what she does for the Little Rock Police Department and how she just got into the whole idea of being in law enforcement. So, thank you, Chief Haskins, for joining us today.
Well, Kenya, first of all, I want to thank you for having me today. I feel like I'm pretty anonymous. I'm not a well-known person. And so I hope that your audience will see that I'm relatable. That's the biggest goal that I want to get out of this interview today. So I'm honored that you would have me on. And I
Yes,
hope everyone is taking care of themselves while we're snowed in on this. It's beautiful snow,
beautiful.
very beautiful snow. So I hope everybody's taking care of themselves.
Yes, and that's one thing that we can all relate to is being snowed in. So let's talk just a little bit about you. Tell us a little bit about your background, where you're from, and how you got to the Little Rock Police Department.
Well, I'm from Central Arkansas. Was born and raised here. Um, Grew up in Jacksonville, Arkansas. My parents were both, they originate from Lonoke County. So I have family in Des Arc and a small town that a lot of people probably have never heard of, Hickory Plains on my dad's side. And my mom's family is from Kerr, Arkansas, which is down Highway 70. And so I
Yeah.
have a lot of family there. Um, my grandmother had a home in McAlmont that is still a family home. And so spent a lot of time in the McAlmont community and going to church in
Mhm.
that community at New Zion Grove. So I'm just a hometown girl that grew up here. Been with the police department since 2006. Originally joined the police department as a stepping stone on my way to law school.
Okay.
And with the promotional opportunities that I've been afforded, it has somewhat changed my trajectory. I feel confidently that sometime down the road, maybe a decade down the road, I will have the opportunity to be a police chief somewhere. And Little Rock has given me that opportunity. So to do a lot of good work in this community. So that's a little bit about me. Education wise, I have a bachelor's degree in criminal justice, and my master's degree doesn't really go with the job that I do, but it does.
Yeah.
It's a master's of education in adult education, and
Okay.
so that kind of gives me a lot of insight in reaching personnel. I understand how a lot of people work, and so when I'm delivering directives and giving instructions, I try to make sure that I satisfy all of those adult needs. So I haven't used a degree in an academic setting, but I'm definitely using it every day at work.
Absolutely. So you mentioned that a career in law enforcement was a stepping stone for you going to law school, and so there are a variety of ways and avenues to get to law school. And so you chose a career in law enforcement. As a woman, you could have chosen any of the traditional careers that are sometimes assigned and assumed that women would choose, like being a nurse or being a teacher, but yet you chose law enforcement and specifically the police department. And so, what factored into your decision in becoming a police officer?
Well, it was twofold. Growing up, I watched a lot of police shows, Law and Order,
Okay.
and so that kind of factored into it. But really and honestly, I became a mother at 18, immediately after graduating from high school the following year. So I was going to school, working full time. and wanted to land a career and figure out how I could pay for school
Mm-hmm.
and while I was working. And so, my mindset was, I'll do law enforcement until my kids are old enough to take care of themselves, and then I'll go back to law school. And like I said, it wasn't until 2013 that I really started thinking, like, if I really focus, I may be able to be a police chief, and how much more impactful will that be? And I was fortunate enough to have a lot of different mentors at work
Okay.
that believed in me, and they supported that. When I told them, it didn't sound, egotistical when I said it, or too ambitious. They were like, yeah, I see that in you. And so with their support and the support of my family, it it started to become, okay, I can get on this career path and actually do it. But there are days that I still say, man, I really want to know what it would be like to be an attorney and to practice law.
Yeah.
So I hadn't put that to bed.
Okay, good.
Yeah, I hadn't put that to bed, and that may be something that I pursue, within the next 5 or 6 years. It just depends.
Nice, nice. You mentioned that you had the support of your family going into this particular career field, and I know that that is really important and impactful for you as you go along your journey. And speaking of journey, I was listening to NPR a couple of weeks ago.
Love NPR.
Me too. Shout out to NPR, KUAR radio.
Yes.
I was listening to the radio a couple of weeks ago, and there was a woman police chief. I think it was either in Minnesota or Michigan, and she was talking about how she has seen in her line of work how there's a difference between how people react to women police officers as opposed to dealing with men. Have you seen that in your line of work, and how has that helped you in the field?
Well, one of the things that I will say as a woman in law enforcement that I see, we're detail oriented people. And so we get down into those details. I don't want to use the word nurture because, I don't want to say that we're nurturers and that that's only something that a woman can do, but we understand the fact that we've got to communicate, get down underneath the surface of the problem,
Mm-hmm.
instead of just, I'm going to do this, this, and this. Everything isn't routine.
Okay.
A lot of women are underestimated in this field, but we have the capacity to do a lot of different things. That's one of the things that I've championed as I have become a leader, is to encourage more women to take the promotional testing, so that they can have some say in some of the decisions that are being made. They can be a part of the policy making process for the department. And what I have seen is that their work is more detail oriented. It solves problems and forecasts for future problems. Not that men can't do that. I just see that more in a lot of women,
Okay.
and so, but we have a hard time getting women to see themselves in that light in this profession because it is so male dominated. I mean, the vast majority of our ranks are is males, and so that could be a little intimidating. What I've heard since I've been promoted to assistant chief is, from a lot of women that, they're very proud. And so I recognize that, and I want to usher them into opportunities and space where they can, see themselves
Yes.
being an assistant chief, because I definitely don't want to be the last for our department. But it's huge, and I don't consider it a burden, but I do feel the weight of the responsibility, for sure.
And so two things. Number one, thank you for your service uh, to Central Arkansas. On behalf of all the civilians, thank you for your service. And then number two, you're right. There are not a lot of women in the Little Rock Police Department or in any police department. So, what would you say to a young woman who's fresh out of high school or fresh out of college and considering joining the police force? What advice would you tell them? What would you how would you usher them in?
What I every time that I'm talking to a young person or someone that I'm trying to recruit, I always tell them I'm 5'3". People tell me all the time, I thought you were taller on your pictures. No, I'm just 5'3". And if I can do it, you can do it. My biggest tool on my tool belt is my ability to communicate. And so if you're a great communicator,
Mhm.
you can do this work. For most municipalities, you're not going to be in a situation often where you're alone. So you will have partners that are there helping you work through whatever the call for service is, whatever that issue is. And so it I didn't shoot a gun until I became a police officer, actually showing up to training,
Okay.
and and they taught me. They trained me, and they actually said they preferred that because I didn't have any bad skills that were set in. And so
Right.
I tell women, you can do this job. I'm 5'3". You can do this job. Number one, you have to be able to communicate.
Mhm.
Number two, you have to be willing to get the job done. And sometimes that's staying late. I call it ministry work. You have to be willing to put the work into the ministry. And any woman can do it, in my opinion. And there's different roles for everyone.
Yeah.
You may be a introverted woman, but you may be really good at policy making.
Mhm.
And and so we need those people too. You may be a computer programmer. We need those people too. So there's a lot of different functions for the police department. It doesn't necessarily mean that you will be in patrol, but that is a part of it. That's the backbone of what we do. But there are a lot of different opportunities to be investigators and to, do a lot of meaningful work. And so it, every woman, in my opinion, is capable, particularly mothers. We have a lot of people, I'm a mom.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, you're negotiating with your kids to do whatever you need
Right.
them to do. Clean your room,
Yeah.
get up and go to school, be on time. What about your grades? And so, a lot of our work is some of you can bring that skill set that you've already had built in to law enforcement
You
for sure.
you mentioned the term ministry as you describe your work. I would not have thought to use that word describing what you do on a daily basis. But as you talked, I was thinking, yeah, it is. It
Yeah.
is just exactly that. And so
Yeah.
when you think of the ministry, there's the good, there's the bad, there's the ugly, there's the indifferent, the otherwise. And so using your ministry, how would you say that it has helped you with what you do in the present day climate? There's not a lot of trust, or I guess I would say trust in the police force has been a little bit diminished over the past few years. And so, how do you see your ministry as a police officer, and more specifically as the assistant police chief, in helping to heal wounds and bridge divides in the city?
Well, last year we're in the pandemic. We Before the pandemic started, a lot of people would say internally, externally, that the police department it's hard to affect change within a police department. It took the pandemic where we were having to change operations, not within a matter of weeks, within days time.
Oh, wow.
So at that point I realized we can do whatever we want to do. We turned the Titanic ship around and went the opposite direction at the onset of the pandemic. And then the George Floyd in custody death took place. And I mean, that just vibrated across the world.
Yeah.
And it certainly impacted our work here in Little Rock. And, we had a number of demonstrations that took place all over the city. And one of the things that I realized is that, relationships matter. And that although we had thought that we had made some strides, we still had quite a ways to go. Um, the word and phrase that most law enforcement executives are using today is reimagination, and they're talking about reformations. But I think it's really just going back to the basics, and that relational policing, where
Yes.
the police officers that are in your area. And maybe if you don't know them, someone within the organization that you can call and to help you walk through whatever the issue is.
Right.
And so that's been my really big push, not only when I was the captain
Mm-hmm.
for 12th Street, is to establish those relationships. I mean, people would call,
Mm-hmm.
and whenever I got a chance to meet with folks, I would tell them, invite us to anything,
Okay.
we will come. And I would tell them also, 12th Street belongs to you all. That's your facility. We
Yeah.
want you to come in. We will provide tours. You can host a meeting here, just so that we can build those rapports. Because whenever the crisis hits, you don't want to be at that moment trying to establish allies. And so that's important. And then, secondly, um, from my role as an administrator, accountability and transparency is important. And so I want to hold my officers accountable. I want to make sure that they're getting adequate training, that we don't overwork them to the point that their wellness becomes an issue. And so all of those things matter. It's like, cooking with all of the eyes on, and just making sure nothing burns.
Right.
And making sure that community policing is not a program. It's
Mhm.
just it's a philosophy that should be in every officer.
So you mentioned that you have kids. What do the kids think about you as mom, the police officer, mom, the assistant police chief?
Oh, well, I have two kids. One is 20 and the other one is 17. My 20-year-old, I call him my flower child. He's my hippie. Nothing was wrong in the world. And, he's very rarely is he an upset person or someone that's down. And so very positive.
Okay.
My youngest, he's my little prima donna. It's all about him. When I announced to them that I was testing and that more than likely was going to get promoted and we were going to have to move to Little Rock, the youngest was like, "Mom, you don't need to do every promotion. Like, you don't have to take these jobs. You've got a lot of time." So he since has changed his mind. They're super proud. What I tell people all the time is that every promotion,
Mhm.
my kids got promoted with me. Like when for sergeant,
Yeah.
they were at the study groups.
Yeah.
Be quiet, guys. We'll do your homework, and mom's over here studying. So they were at the study groups. Every promotion, they've been there, very supportive. When I'm at home and I'm studying, they give me the space and allow me to do those things. And I've taken assignments and thought about how it would impact the family after.
Yeah.
And and I'm fortunate that I could do that because of the village of people that have been around me, my brothers and sisters,
Yes.
grandparents, my parents. And so they have a really good foundation and they've been very supportive. I took them to a breakfast one time, and there was a gentleman that had approached and he said, "Wow, you just don't look like a police officer." And one of my sons said to them, well, that is very sexist. And he was maybe 7. So the guy was like, oh, yeah, excuse me, forgive me. You're right. That was very sexist. And what school do you go to? I need to get my grandkids over there. And so I say that they're feminists. My kids are feminists. They believe in women being strong and being in executive positions. And fortunate enough, that wasn't all me. I
Yeah.
have a lot of strong women in my family who, uh, are doing things, and they're also, implementing that in their walks of life. And so the
Yeah.
kids are able to see that.
That's beautiful. That is beautiful. So I know that as a police chief, you have, I'm sure you're going 100 miles an hour every day from the time you wake up to the time you get home. And I know that, particularly during these times, that's got to be stressful. It's got to be a lot. And so with that, how do you relax? How do you unwind? What do you do to, just chill? How do you do that? What do you do?
I like to read.
Okay.
So I do a lot of reading. Most of it is professional, but I do like to read. Another thing that I like to do, I like to take long walks and listen to gospel music.
Yes.
And that's one of the things that just really helps me to just clear my mind and to reset and make sure that, whatever issues that I'm facing, that, I'm facing them, considering all of the possibilities to make sure that we get the right outcome,
Right.
whether it's a personal matter or a professional matter. And I'm old fashioned. I like to take just a nice hot bath and
Yeah.
just soak
So,
and relax.
yeah.
Just sit there.
Yeah.
And so those are the things that I like to do. I said that I would start doing some fancy cooking from a cookbook. I do a lot of cooking, and it's just
Is it
something that I think about. But like actually getting a cookbook and
yeah.
going to the store and getting all of the ingredients, I want to do a lot more of that. So that's something that I plan to do in the future
Okay.
and force my kids to eat it.
Exactly.
They're very picky eaters.
So I do want to talk about the kids, but I want to circle back to you love to read. Um who are you reading right now? And then what are who are one or two of your favorite authors?
Well, I'm a big John Grisham fan. Like,
Ooh.
I read all of his books. And so I share those books with my brother. He's a John Grisham fan. And so when I'm reading for fun, it's John Grisham. Right now, I'm reading Call Sign Chaos.
Okay.
Um, General Mathis is the author of that book, and it's a leadership book and walking through the arc of his career and how he started out in the military and then, rising through the ranks.
Yeah.
And so it's been a pretty interesting read. I do a lot of going back and reading old books
Okay.
that I've already read. And
Okay.
so
Yes.
the author's name is escaping me, but it's a book on followership and going back and reading the types of followers that the author has identified and how you can get those types of followers to follow you, number one,
Yeah.
and be good followers. And that doesn't mean just loyal and blind loyalty. It
Mm-hmm.
just they're leading up as well. They're giving you the information to help you make decisions. And so I'm revisiting that book right now.
Okay, okay. And you also mentioned you like to listen to gospel music. Who are a couple of your favorites?
So I'm replaying a lot of Tasha Cobb.
Ooh,
She's
yeah.
really good. And CeCe Winans just put out a new song, and it's so beautiful, very inspirational.
Okay,
Jekalyn Carr,
okay.
I'm a big fan of hers. And um, Really a lot of oldies but goodies. I just tried to find a lot of the old songs that I remember that were sang when I was a little kid, growing up at New Zion Grove Baptist
Yeah.
Church. And so what the Mighty Clouds of Joy,
Yeah.
uh, this old stuff right now.
So you got a mix, like you said, of old school and new school. So
Yes,
yes,
yes.
you can always go back to the old school stuff. It never gets
I,
old. Ever.
never, never. I replay it all the time.
Yeah.
All the time.
So one final question for you. Um,
Okay.
what do you see? What do you hope and wish for the people of Little Rock, in greater Central Arkansas rather, to know about police work and service in the Little Rock Police Department that they may or may not know already?
One of the things that I want them to know is I think that, with the uniform,
Mhm.
it makes us unrelatable, because we're entering in with a position of authority.
Mhm.
And, and from that respect, it probably can seem a little overwhelming. I try to disarm people when I approach them.
Mhm.
And throughout my career, I've always tried to disarm people and just get down to we're all human, we're
Right,
ignoble, we're the same. We
right,
come from, we have the same starts,
right,
and just entering with respect. That's the biggest thing that, on both sides of the table. Officers entering with respect, and then we also need the community to enter with respect. And
mm,
we do have a lot of a long history.
right,
I don't want to. I never say that we should forget about the history. The history is what is how we've gotten to today.
right.
So every incident, I just ask that the public will take that one incident into account.
Mhm.
What's going on today? Who's in front of you today?
Right,
How are they treating you today?
right,
And let that dictate what transpires from that point. And what you'll see is the vast majority of our officers are respectful. They're providing dignity and respect to our communities. And then on those occasions that they aren't, we want to hear from the community. We want to know about those times,
yeah,
so that we can investigate. If there's discipline that's in order,
mhm,
then discipline. If the officers did everything that we expected them to do, then we certainly want to make sure that the officer know, and that we recognize that. So um, that's the biggest thing, is that everyone entering with respect and remembering that we're all ignoble. We're the same. We have the same origins. We're all human,
yeah,
for sure. And thank God for Chief Humphrey seeing something in me, because he did have his pick of the top three candidates, and he chose me to fill this role. And I want to do a good work for not only him but also for the citizens. So I want to stay focused on the work. That's been my mentality. I just want to work. And so you give me opportunity and the space to work, judge me on those results.
that's beautiful. And with that, Chief, Assistant Chief, that's a wrap.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you again for the invitation. I really appreciate talking to you today.
Absolutely.